who's joined in briefly. Let's see. All right. Good afternoon. I'm going to finish up this page. Well, I guess double page spread, right? Hopefully get it banged out. Got a big explosion here. Right? I appreciate that. Thank you for coming in. All right, I'm going to get to the details on here. Let's see. I should have a better way of avoiding any of this glare in my own eyes up here. So, let's see, that back out a little bit? Yeah, all right, good. Scoot that over just a bit. There we go. All right. I gotta focus on these guys over here. What am I doing? What does it look like I'm doing? What does it look like I'm doing? Being asked over on Kick. I'm working on a pitch project here. I've got a script laid out, well, plot laid out. La Columbia. And I've got some pages I want to do for sure planned out, and that hopefully be enough for some kind of pitch. Good afternoon. Got a big explosion. Yeah, so we start over here with these pages. So hey, setting some stuff up over here and over there. This guy's being carried out. They're heading for the exit. This is what's waiting for him. This guy's, he's not getting out of there. And then I realized looking at this, I need to maybe largen his hand up a little bit. It's a little small. But he's about to hit a button, and then the countdown starts. So dad grabs his son, and he's yelling for him to get moving. There's the monster close up. They're running through the door. It's the final second, and 0. I'm probably going to do the, what am I drinking? Coffee. Like kava, however people say that in other languages. And then big kaboom. We're on the outside, there's a door. Here's the father son over there on the left. Some of these guys aren't surviving the kaboom over there. They keep running. There's smoke billowing out. There's one of the guys who got cut up over here at the top. They're looking back. There's another body over here. They're looking back. It's like it's not done yet. Big kaboom. So, more guys running in the next page. I've already got planned out. It's going to be all this debris coming down, raining down on top of it. Just two? So, yeah, these guys are running for it. Here's the father and son at the top. So that's what we got going on now over here. I am 47 years old. So, just a baby. But so I know where I'm going with this one. Come on for a bit, and at least over on the Instagram side, if you'll DM me, or not DM me, if you'll comment comics, my little bot come in and to your DMs and ask you for your email address. And when I decide to kind of get moving with publication or kickstarting or whatever for this, that will be announced to you. So I got a bot in there over on Kick. 28 years old, huh? Well, congratulations. You have all of your life behind you. I'm looking forward to inking these pages up. It's going to be fun. Yeah, so yeah, that's what we got going on. So I thought I'd come in here and work on this for a bit. Let me just shrink this guy down just so we get more scale on the background. Yeah, don't hesitate to ask any questions. I don't mind chatting while working. I'm used to doing that. What? Let's see. Looks like I got some German there. How do I paint? I wish I could do that like that. Oh, a lot of practice. I've been drawing for a very long time. I teach drawing and painting and those other things at university. Let's see, why is it? Is it twitching on me? Or is it okay? It's a little bit of a twitch. I wonder if it's this thing. But sometimes it's like fine. Other times it gets a little bit of some kind of problem up there. But so I'm familiar with all kinds of illustration and painting and all that stuff. And I've worked in professionally, with game studios and all that good jazz. So I have a little dog at my feet too, which doesn't hurt either to have a dog around. So all kinds of different drawing too. So it's not just comics. I've taught figure drawing and done figure drawing for a very very long time, and perspective drawing, which is also really important, and storytelling and landscape painting and drawing, and all the stuff. So um, definitely no AI nonsense here. If you want to kill your artistic vision, then definitely use it. If you want to have your own, then don't ever. Um, it's funny the discussions I'll have with people, and it's like for me it's axiomatic that if you stop using your imagination, if you hand that over to an algorithm, it's going to do nothing but undermine your abilities. It should be, I think, obvious to everybody. But I talk to professional artists all the time, my colleagues, and they seem to think that they are above their humanity for some reason. I don't get it. But, well, I do, but I don't like the answer that implies. But, I should probably bring these guys over so I can work on the two main characters up here. And it's not that I'm perfect or anything. I'm always learning new things. Let's see, let's go ahead and pull these guys back. How many pictures do I have? I have many pictures. I have no idea how many I've done. I mean, in terms of my art stuff, I have no idea. I did take some photographs of myself, but they're not like perfectly aligned with these drawings, which I think is actually good for what I want to do here, since I'm trying to work with my imagination, and having some reference for helping me out with poses, I think, is a great idea. Let me know if that works there, Everett. I haven't tested it yet on my own. So. Over on the Instagram, if you comment comic, it'll send my bot over there to collect your email address. There's a piece of paper so I can rest my hand on the ground. That should do. So, but the sequence here is actually a flashback in the story. So, the idea here is he's remembering this disaster from when he was younger. And, oh, great. Appreciate it. Yeah, I had typed all the phrases, but let's see, we're going to direct that into the wrist, into the pinky, into the pisiform bone. I even know my anatomy. Look at me go. Pisiform is a little tiny bone in your wrist, one of the carpal bones. I don't remember all the names of the other ones, but that one I remember because it's kind of a landmark on your palm at the base. So that's a disaster when father and son, and then it shifts into the contemporary day when he's been sent out to investigate another lost ship. Because the story here is it's humans have taken a generational colony ship out to a distant planet, and they could see that it was probably uninhabited by like an intelligent life form. There didn't seem to be evidence of that based off of what they could tell from Earth, and they sent out a colony ship to bring them out. But it takes like a long time to get there. They don't have, they can't travel faster than light, so this isn't like Star Trek or Star Wars where you can kind of zip around. So they spent, I think I'm going to say around, say, 1,500 years or so getting out here. And in the process, of course, they get separated from Earth and all that, and but they arrive on the planet. Something happens, and it forces their little colony group to crash onto the planet. Like there's a forced kind of landing event, and that's not what this story is about. This is set. This flashback is about 60 years after that. So the father is someone who's born and grown up on this planet, and they arrive here. The planet is very strange. It looks like a giant tangle of plants. So rather than looking like a solid planet like Earth, or Arrakis, or Tatooine, or whatever, it's it looks like a giant like tangle, and they kind of learn to live among it, but they're struggling because it's not it's not Earth, and so they rely a lot on their supplies from the generation ship to kind of sustain them. And anyway, some of the other ships they landed or crashed in other parts of the planet, and these guys are been sent out to investigate one of those sites. And there's some things that happen here while they're away from the colony. And father dies, the crew dies, the son survives, and his father swears him to a secret that he can never share. And that secret kind of eats at him, and keeping it ruins his reputation. And the regular series is set 20 odd years later, and he's assigned to go out alone on a similar type mission as a chance to kind of redeem his reputation. And so if he survives, there's great reward. If he does not, or at least doesn't find what he's looking for. He doesn't have to survive, but he does have to, like, deliver the goods. Then it can be mean really good things for him. And so this is a flashback to that original incident. And we don't learn exactly what happens here beyond, what happened to the team members in this particular set of pages. But that's kind of the story so far. And I've written up the plot for about 12 issues. Really, it's just, general plot. And so I need to put some pitch pages together, really solidify the first issue. And then go from there. So that's kind of what we're working on. So I've been trying to jump into this. Spent a good chunk of the summer figuring it out. So I thought about doing it all on the computer or on my iPad, but I was like, so let's jump into some like real analog media, right? Just something nice about that. So I need to figure out this hand one. So let's get you your thing that you're holding here. Got a mirror up in front of me, so I'm just trying to make sure I can visualize how he's holding this. I might need to flip it upside down so I can see it properly. Let's get that bridge out of the way. Where the thumb is going to be. I should start drawing this upside down. So thumb would be at the base. I always got to make things hard on myself, right? We got the pinky here. And there's the ring finger and the middle finger. And the pointer. Thumbs over here. And we've got the thing coming out. Has anyone got any predictions for the conclusion of Alien Earth? caught up with it. So that could be a little bit more substantial. Seems people complaining about it, but I'm rather enjoying it. I don't know. I don't think it's like the best Alien thing ever, but it's better than a lot of but I think it's been pretty enjoyable. Shrink that pinky down a bit. Oh, okay, yeah, there's the new TV show, right? Um, First movie, of course, is a classic. I don't think it gets any better than the original Alien movie. Um, yeah, they got that new TV series. It's by Noah Hawley. Nope, Alien Earth is TV show, so it's on HBO via FX. Um, and it's about a Weyland-Yutani ship uh, crashes on Earth for initially mysterious reasons. We figure out what it is. Well, they show us what happens later on, and it crashes on Earth. I think somewhere like in Thailand or something, but it's a different corporation's territory on Earth, um, and it centers around a group of children, 5 or 6 of them, who have all have like terrible diseases. That's kind of what they start with in the show. So these kids have these terrible diseases, and they get their minds copied over to some cyborgs. Not cyborgs, like some of those artificial humans that they have in the show. So basically, they found a way to transfer children's minds over. They can do children, I guess, because there's, I guess, greater flexibility in their minds while they're still young. And so they're able to transfer them over to these new kind of robot synthetic bodies. And the ship carrying the alien stuff, flip this on, this hand actually needs to be pivoted more that way. Maybe I can adjust the arm, that might be easier. But the ship carrying the alien, it's not just carrying like the alien egg, it's carrying other kinds of aliens. Hello. And so the first like couple of episodes are them trying to contain the aliens that are on this ship. And there's one survivor of the crash, and he's a human cyborg. So he's human, but he's got augmentation, and he is trying to stop them from collecting the aliens because they're in the wrong territory. And so they've got a full-grown, scary alien running around like slaughtering people in this building on Earth. We've got these cyborg kids who are in adult bodies but act like small children, like young children. And then there's these other aliens on the ship. One of them is like an eyeball with tentacles, and it takes over things' minds and controls them by replacing their eye. There's a some kind of weird plant thing. There's some bugs that we find out what they eat later on. And then what else is there? Oh yeah, these kind of ticks. Um, what they do is really terrible. So so there's scary aliens on the ship in addition to the alien. So yeah, there's like 5 or 6 different aliens on this ship. And it was done by Noah Hawley. He did the Fargo TV series. Before this, he also did Legion, which is a pretty great show. And then I forget what else he did, but it's a good show. I don't think it's as good as the original Alien, but that's hard to beat. I mean, that's not it's a tough standard to contend with. Supposedly, the show is set before the original Alien movie, which I'm not really sure how that works, kind of lore wise. Well, they focus, on certain things for different time periods, right? So it's not. Plus, it's a TV show, so there's 8 episodes. The last one comes out tomorrow night. So, and then the idea is that they said they want to do more. I don't know if they've gotten approved to do more yet or not, but they want to do more seasons. Yeah, again, it's hard to beat the original. Some people really like Aliens. I think Aliens is okay. It's like more of an adventure story than a horror story for me. So it's not bad. It's just I like the original for what it was. You know, it's way more visceral. It's like I like how Prometheus looks, but it's not like I don't think it's that good of a movie. Um, but I think it's beautifully shot, great production design. But I still like it, even if it's got problems. But yeah, that's Alien Earth. It's about another corporation that we haven't heard about. It's called Prodigy. It's run by a young guy. Uh, and his big business focus has been these transfer of minds to these synthetic bodies. And something he's just a little bit too old to do. But that feels better. But yeah, well, it's like Covenant. One thing that they do in this TV series too, which I don't like, it seems like Covenant and Prometheus, they both kind of rely on what's called an idiot plot. So it just means like the main characters are all morons. Like they just keep making bad decisions. And there's some of this in this TV show too, where it's like, where I kind of think like if you're running a $1 trillion operation, like optimally you're not going to pick the dumbest people to do that. And so you're watching along like, why are they making these decisions? And there's some of that in the TV show. Not entirely, but there's some of it. And I don't like that, but it just seems like there's better ways of making that plot happen without people making unending poor decisions. Yeah. Well, it's like there's other ways of doing that. like the reason why the alien gets loose in the the show, like that one's okay, but some of the other stuff I'm like, just not convinced. Like that's how it happened. Yeah, but if you look at Covenant, that one's really bad. Like those people, I mean, there were dumb decisions being made in Prometheus, but Covenant is like on a whole other level. Or like they land on a planet and they just immediately take their spacesuits off. You know, they don't wait to check it out, or they just kind of like jump in. It's just kind of a mess. The whole movie. Yeah, it's like you know they're in charge of like in Covenant. You know they're in charge of this major operation with thousands of lives on the line, along with probably trillions of dollars, and they just kind of jump into it, and just doesn't make any sense. But I thought it was funny with Covenant, the original captain, he gets burned alive by an accident in space. He I forget the name of the actor. He's a pretty well-known actor, but he's not actually in the movie at all. So they just show his charge remains, but they do use him in like there's like a prequel short that they do where they show him dying and interacting with the crew before he dies. Basically, it's burned alive in his hibernation pod. But yeah, it's just very I don't like idiot plots. It just seems like it shouldn't be that hard to come up with other reasons. Well, it's not so much shady. It's just like it just feels like they didn't want to be bothered with planning, or maybe there's conflicts in the writers' room. I don't know. I'm not involved with these decisions, so they don't check with me first for some reason. Like all these directors and movie people, I don't know why they don't talk to me before they make their movie. I think honestly, I think part of it comes from the fact that they just want to show that these people are stupid. So like they don't like, say, corporate. They think corporate stuff is bad, and therefore they have to show all corporate stuff as being stupid. You kind of see that with recent Star Wars, where they show all of the stormtroopers as making bad decisions all the time and not being able to shoot in modern Star Wars. But we see how more interesting it is when they make them scary, like they did in Andor, where they're professional, soldiers, as opposed to morons. And helps with the storytelling and the stakes and makes everything more interesting. I think, anyway. But hello over there on Kick's side. But I guess just something to keep in mind for my own little story here, right? To not turn it into idiot plot, or if I do have idiots in there and they're in charge, there's got to be a good reason why they're the ones making the decisions, and not just randomly show them being that way. So. It doesn't even have to be that complicated. Just have to like give a decent reason. I think anyway. Like I say, I don't need to be perfect. I just want it to make sense. But what's nice about this Alien show is they're starting to kind of get into the point where the kids are kind of picking up on the fact these human synthetic transfer mind kids are kind of starting to pick up on the fact that they aren't quite the same as people anymore. So my attitude about that is like you really can't transfer. You may probably make like a copy of what yourself would be, but you would never be able to actually transfer yourself per se into a synthetic existence. You would just be a copy of you. I appreciate that. Over there, Herman. So that's definitely be something. I mean, they do bring that up in the show, which I thought was good. It's not just like, oh yeah, now they are the children. Uh, like the recent episode, they hike past their graves, where their bodies are buried, which I guess they never visited before. I appreciate that. Want to get on that email list if when and if this launches. That's what that's specifically for. And we'll shoot you a DM to get you on the list if you're not on it already. But or whatever I do, I want to get back to promoting that now that I'm kind of back in more of a productive production phase. But did get confirmation that it is working, so that's good. You never know, right? So set things up, and then, cross your fingers. Yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it. Again, it's not perfect, like I say, but it's. I think it's worth a watch. Hopefully there'll be more. But one of the things one of my complaints about modern shows too is just how short they are. It's like I came across, I was curious, and I did find because some of these like shows I watched in the '90s, like you can't buy DVDs, so some of them are on YouTube. Like there's one I was remembering, I think it was last week, and there's only one season, but it's called Nowhere Man. I remember liking it a lot. I started watching the first episode, see what I could remember. Yeah, I think I could do it on the commenting on traditional versus or I prefer analog over traditional medium, but doing comics, kind of the pencil and pen and markers and brushes and all that, I think it's more enjoyable. Plus, I don't, you certainly would save some time doing it on the computer, being able to resize things or work in layers. But at the same time, I don't know that you really get that much of a productivity boost, especially if you're, this is like a limited thing that I'm planning on doing here. So this is right here. And, but. Yeah, Nowhere Man. You can look it up on YouTube. There's a few different places that have it on there. But Yeah, digital's really. I mean, like, why would we do all the coloring digitally, obviously, but. Thought about doing the roughs in Infinite Painter. Probably definitely do all the flatting in there, probably maybe the coloring too. But yeah, Nowhere Man. But basically, it's a story about his photographer, and he's having this show of his work. He does kind of like journalistic photography, so he goes to war zones and troubled places and takes pictures for newspapers and magazines and things like that. So he's doing this show, and there's a particular image that people are really interested in, which is a shot of a hanging of some what look like to be like guerrilla fighters of some kind, maybe somewhere in Asia, but it's like some kind of Vietnam atrocity or something like that. Anyway, he's having this show. They end the show. He and his wife they go to dinner. Um, the actress is the same one that's in the Millennium TV series, which is a really great series from the time period. I have the DVDs for those. But anyway, they go to dinner, and he steps out to go smoke a cigarette in the bathroom, which is funny because you would never see that today, but in a show, like someone leaving to go smoke a cigarette, it's just like almost never done. Because I guess if they're worried that you see an actor smoking, you will immediately start smoking for some reason. But anyway, he goes to the bathroom, he smokes his cigarette, comes back, and his wife is gone. And there's other people sitting and having a nice meal at his table that he was just at. And they're all just, they're just gone. So he's confused. The restaurant he's been to a lot of times, no one recognizes him there. Like the maitre d', the security guy, like they act like they don't know who he is. And so he leaves, catches takes some cash and goes and rents gets a taxi and goes home. And he gets to his house, starts pounding on the door, and his wife answers the door, and she acts like she has no idea who he is. And he's confused, and then her husband comes down the stairs, which is not him, apparently, and threatens him, and he has to leave. And he's very confused by all of this, and then he goes to get some money out of the bank in the morning, and none of his bank cards work. And he's like, what is going on? His wife doesn't like him or doesn't recognize him. So he stalks her down, and he kind of gets her to confess in the car while he's kind of got a gun to her head, basically. It's just like, what's going on? And she just says there's people they don't want him to. They want to basically erase him from existence. Period. And there's something they want from him that they want to get, but she doesn't know what it is, etc. And so when they finally show up someplace, she again acts like she doesn't know him and gets there's a cop that pulls him over and he gets arrested. And she acts like he's some weird stalker that she doesn't know because she's, I guess, not supposed to know him anymore. And yeah, so they kind of start off there, and then he's having some kind of conversation because they throw him in this insane asylum because he's acting crazy with another person there, and it looks like some of the other inmates there are dealing with a similar set of circumstances that he is. And they eventually get like lobotomized in this insane asylum. A bunch of one of the other guys. There's another one that's had it happen to him, but they kind of know a little bit about what's going on. There's some kind of larger conspiracy. Conspiracy shows were popular back then. And anyway, he manages to escape the asylum after he sees his wife and the psychologist talking to each other. And he traces them, figures out what they're looking for. And they're looking for the negative for that photograph he took. and that's what they want from him. Whoever the people are that want this, and that's kind of the premise of the show. So he manages to collect that negative. He has it hidden in his studio, and he manages to get it back. While the people are chasing him down, some chemicals get caught on fire and it blows up his studio. He escapes. The people that were chasing him, they die in the explosion, I guess. We don't see him again. And the last shot is of him out on a lonely road trying to figure out where and what he's going to do next. And that's the end of the first episode. These days, that would be like an entire season, just that entire episode. But there's like 24, 25 episodes, I think, in the one season. They do resolve the main story at the end of that season. And it was canceled right after that, so they only did one season. But that's like, these days doing like 25 episodes, that's 3 seasons of television, or a TV show, or a show, I guess. But that's the premise of it. It's the actor who's the character in there, he's the one, I don't know from too many films he was in the recent Star Trek movies as the mentor for Captain Kirk, a guy named Captain Pike. He's like the first captain of the Enterprise. But it's that actor. He's got different hair, of course. It's like he's got some 90s big hair. Yeah, so they canceled it back then. Well, it just didn't catch the viewership. Back then, it was like X-Files was the big kind of popular show. It was on at the same time. X-Files is really, really, really popular. And it just never. It was on UPN, so it wasn't on Fox. It wasn't on ABC, like the main TV channels. And we didn't do. There was no streaming. It was just regular TV. So if you didn't watch it when it was on, and the way they would put shows on schedules back then, they had like different time slots for them, and if they weren't sure about how well a show would do, they might not put it in like the best time slot, or they might put it in competition with another show, and that made a really, really big difference for how well a show could do back then. So now, streaming, it's just you watch it whenever you want to. They care more about it like when it first launches, but back then, it mattered when your show was on. So if your show was on like a slower night, like a Wednesday or something like that, or Thursday, it could negatively impact your show as opposed to being, say, on after X-Files or something like that. Where you're like, well, I'm already up, I'm watching my show, what do I watch next? And they say, oh, there's this other show coming on after X-Files, so I'll watch that. And then when they would show shows depended on like the age that would be watching. So scarier stuff was usually on after like 8 p.m. So it was like for more of an adult audience, as opposed to like Star Trek that might be on at 6 or 7 p.m. So there's all these scheduling things going on back then. I think maybe the other problem it had too, I haven't watched it all again recently, but I think it was also less episodic, which I think we've talked about in here before. But like TV shows used to be more episodic. That is, every episode was almost like a self-contained story, like a Simpsons episode or something. And what came before didn't really affect what happened afterward too much. Like sometimes they'd have ongoing stories, like X-Files had that ongoing alien thing going on in their stories, right? But a show like this was, it had like a longer ongoing story, and so if you missed an episode here or there due to you had work, or you just didn't have your VCR properly set up or whatever to record the show, or you want to record something else at that time, then you might miss some of the story and it gets confusing. You just kind of stop watching it. Yeah, so like in the U.S., they didn't show like adult, like pornographic stuff at night on the regular channel, but it was just like more serious or scary, or like X-Files would be more serious and scary, so they would show that after as opposed to like say Seinfeld or one of the kind of less serious shows. But it was also on UPN, which was like a new TV channel, and so I think it took a while for that one to gain traction. Like UPN had this like submarine show that was kind of like Star Trek, but it was underwater. Pause due to poor connection. Yeah, well, I think we talked about it here before too. But if you look at what are some of the most popular shows on streaming, like ongoing over time, it's things like Friends and Seinfeld. So old shows where it was episodic, and you could just watch your favorite episodes or whatever. But I think in terms of like developing a story and executing on that story, I think it's just much cheaper to do it the way they're doing it now, where they can tell one contained story in the season, and kind of go with that. I think X-Files again is probably the big transition show, where the kind of ongoing narrative really impacted other shows. So like look at there's a show called Millennium, and that was like less episodic. They only did 3 seasons of that, but that was related to that was also by Chris Carter, who did X-Files. And that was all before streaming was on anybody's mind. So good. Let's get the other character in there. I guess I'm working over here. We can zoom in. So, but optimally, if they're doing these shorter seasons, they can do more with visual effects and cinematography. So, like the cinematography in older shows isn't quite as dynamic as it is now because the cameras are easier to use, and there's all this editing software that they didn't have before. So. But I think it also just leaves less room for experimentation too. So they have to like stick with this one story, and if that one story doesn't work out, then they have to cancel the whole thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of those shows. Again, so yeah, Nora Man, you can find it. I found like 3 or 4 YouTube channels that had it. Another one I like from that same time period I've mentioned in here before, that you can still find there too, is Strange Luck. He's another photographer. He gets like assigned these photography things for his like a magazine or whatever, and he goes around and takes pictures at these events. But he has weird things kind of happen to him. So every day for him is like a Rube Goldberg machine. So like there's random things that happen throughout the day that all kind of tie back together at the end. Yeah, much like with Stranger Things, right? So the actors have aged so much that they can't do it in the 80s anymore. And really, they should have not had it in the 80s for a long time. Because the kids are so much older looking, even though it's supposed to be like 1 year later per season. They've aged a lot, and just kind of looks goofy. You don't often notice it. Like if you look at like a lot of older like 80s, 90s movies where the actors are supposed to be playing teenager, but the actor's clearly like 30 years old. If you like, just think about it for a second. You don't always notice it when you're watching the show, because you just kind of accept what's being shown to you. This has the F. But yeah, they don't look young anymore. Well, it's like I wondered how. I haven't watched it yet, but I wondered how the new season of Wednesday was because she doesn't look like she's like a high schooler anymore. The actress, anyway. I don't know if they're able to like put enough makeup on her to make her look young. But yeah, Greece. Yeah, they're all supposed to be teenagers. They all look like they're in their 30s. But you see that like even in like the 80s, like Greece is older than that. But I want them to look happy, freaked out. Yeah. Um, it's like older, even older movies. Like they would do this thing where they put some oil on the lens to fog up the view when they were pointing at certain actresses because they got more wrinkles on their face and things like that. Um, Back then, again, they would film like 12 episodes, and then take a break for a few months in the middle and film the next 12 or so, and then put those out, and then there'd be mid-season, it would be the seasonal break, and then they'd come back the next fall or whatever. Usually fall is when the shows would all kind of launch, and and for all the big shows, there'd be summer shows too. Usually the big shows for all launch in the fall because people tend to be not at home as much in the summer. Can't see the wrinkles if the camera. No, that's true. Yeah. Um, I guess cheaper than having a makeup person on staff, right? To fill everything in. Yeah, that's what's going on over here. So with all the streaming stuff now, because I remember I spent a lot of time transferring all of my DVDs onto the computer with this program called Handbrake. I think it's still around for like encoding stuff. And I guess the PS4, the old PS4 I have still has a DVD player in it. So I haven't tried out. I wonder if I don't think it is. I do wonder if Millennium is on YouTube. So the same actor from Alien actually plays the robot guy in the second movie. What's his name? Something Lance Henriksen, I think is his name. He does a lot of sci-fi films. But he's the main character in Millennium. He's there to kind of stop some kind of doomsday conspiracy for the year 2000. I think the show started up in '98 or '99. There was a lot of into the world kind of shows and discussion back then because round number. Uh, but it's a pretty depressing show. It's this guy has got like a troubled relationship and dark background, and he kind of his job is to kind of hunt down and deal with doomsday cults. And he comes across one that's especially dangerous. And it sort of links back. I think there was even a crossover episode with the X Files because it's all part of the same world. Same with that Strange Luck show. It kind of linked back to the X Files. Chris Carter, he had a bunch of shows back then because his stuff was really popular. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a slow moving show. It's not high octane action or anything. It's just kind of scary and dark. Which I don't mind, but I think it lasted for 3 seasons. I got the DVDs around here somewhere. Yeah, I think there's 3 seasons. It doesn't go into like any of the alien stuff like X Files does, but it's more like cults and the occult and demons and stuff like that. I think he's chasing some group that's supposed to birth the Antichrist or something like that, or thinks they're going to. Again, the actress from that Nowhere Man show that plays the wife of the photographer, she plays the wife of Frank in this show. I only found one review of Nowhere Man on YouTube. Like, never really caught on, but my dad didn't like it because we were watching it. Like, really, really upset him. Like that everyone was gaslighting this guy. Like, it was obvious that they were lying to him, and that really, really upset him. So there's a bot I need to delete. Yeah. But yeah, because you watch it like, well, you were just talking to him like they do him like 10 minutes before. So like, what's going on? And but that's the story. It's there it goes. It's back here. It's back. Yeah, so that really upset him. There's certain things that kind of get his get him going in that way, where it's just like, this just makes me really uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with that. Okay, I found this YouTube channel called Just Rolled In, and it's mechanics showing off some of the crazy things that they see every day in the shop. So especially conditions people bring their cars in, and like conditions of their brakes or the way their frame is being held together, or just all kinds of how much rust there is on their frame, or just all these kind of crazy things that people do to their vehicles. Some of them are just silly, like they didn't have they had a button turned off that made their car make a noise, or they had like a decoration in their car that was making a sound, and they didn't realize that it was making the sound. It wasn't the car. Or they'll find like an animal in an animal like living in the car's engine for some reason. But yeah, the Just Rolled In. It's great that I watch it. I'm just like, these people are driving next to me on the street every single day. They haven't changed their oil in 50,000 miles or whatever, and or their brake pads. So I let my brake pads go for a while once, a little bit longer than I should have. It didn't cause any problems. I got them before they were, too much of a problem. But yeah, it's pretty funny. It's like 10 minutes long, and then people just send them clips. And now that I know a little bit more about how cars work, because working on my own car, watching it, it's like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. And yep, they should definitely do this or that other thing. It's crazy they let this problem happen. Yeah, called Just Rolled In. And, it's just short videos of people showing what's going on with the car and different mechanic shops. There's somewhere like it clearly needs work done, and like the people refuse to have the work done on their car. It's like, they're going to get themselves killed if they go any further, basically. Um, I think there's some different ones that do a similar thing, but that I think is the biggest one. It's like Matt's Off-Road Recovery. It's a guy who's out in, I think, somewhere in southern Utah, and he helps people recover their vehicles that they've rolled over into dangerous places out in the desert. And some of them are pretty amazing. Like it's like how did these people survive this crash? They rolled down into this canyon and had whatever safety equipment on. Oh, tattoos, that's got to be a nightmare. Bad tattoos. Tattoos gone wrong or something. It's amazing to see how much of a style thing tattoos have become. Like, very, very few people had any tattoos when I was growing up. Like, it's a good way of like not getting a job is being having a bunch of tattoos. It's less of an issue now, especially if you don't have like a front-facing job. But it almost seems like it's this weird fixation people have on getting them, like, collecting Teletubbies or whatever people collect. Was that the Boo Boo thing? Yeah. But you got to be careful out there, with your cars or whatever. There's because of my own little SUV camper project, I pay attention to a number of YouTube channels. I don't watch as much as I used to. So there's a couple that died recently. Uh, Toyota World Travelers or something like that. And we did this, rebuilt this Toyota to take them all over South America, and they drove it all over New Zealand and did all these kind of amazing things with it. I guess a few weeks ago they were home in Canada, and they were part of a group, and their truck rolled down a hill, crashed. I guess it fell. It was something like 600 feet off of a cliff or something like that. And the boyfriend, he died right away. Like he didn't survive the crash at all. The girlfriend survived the crash initially, but died in the hospital later that day. Um, Toyota World Runners, that's what it is. And some they didn't say exactly what happened. Like like some of the cliff give out. Did were they taking some kind of crazy risk, or is just one of those things? Um, they were getting ready for some more trips and just hanging out with their friends, and the car went down the hill, and it's pretty tragic. At least it wasn't as like the one with there was a girl from Florida, not far from where I lived, and she was doing the van life thing as a YouTube thing, kind of starting out. And from what I understand, because her boyfriend, she died, disappeared, and they figured out she had died on a trip out in Utah. And they started hunting for the boyfriend, thinking he'd murdered her. And he had gone home to Florida, and then he disappeared out into the swamps of Florida and killed himself. And they just found like a little bit left behind because he was out where there's alligators and everything that eat you up. turns out kind of what happened was, I guess she had fallen down a pretty steep cliff, and she was going to die. Like there was no way. At least he thought that's what he had said. Apparently, was that she was going to die, and there was nothing he could do to save her. But she was in a lot of pain, and so he killed her. And yeah, it's horrifying. But it was weird. The whole thing was really strange. At the time, there was like these videos where they had gotten pulled over, and the cops were worried there was some kind of abusive relationship because of the way that they were talking and fighting with each other. And they had tried to get her to go with them. But yeah, a lot of drama out there. Yeah. Gabby Petito. I remember her name. That was, what, 3 years ago or so. People were like, where did she go? What happened? Nobody knew. She was just gone. And he returned home without her. And, that was all over the news for a bit. Yeah, he was in a flooded swamp, and I think he'd been partially or mostly eaten. That's probably part of the reasons why he went out there was just so he would disappear permanently. And you know, but it's like something you'd see in a movie, the way that or a TV show at the very least. Um, some bodies there, I think. Some legs. Did see they revived Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. It's not quite the same because they don't have that old actor, telling you the story anymore. But most of the stories actually aren't even that interesting. They did have one. I remember it was a couple seasons ago, a couple years ago or whatever. But it was this guy who was like descended from French royalty, and had a happy little family, and was living there in France, and all the normal things. And then one day he just disappeared. His whole family was gone. Yeah, parents want to help. Well, I think the parents were trying to help him escape or something. Well, before he decided to end his life, I think is what happened. And so they were hiding him in order to give him time to figure out what he was going to do. But yeah, I can't imagine. It's like, if that's the true story of what happened, I couldn't imagine getting up every day for the rest of your life like that. Yeah, I remember when Unsolved Mystery was on when I was a kid because I loved that show. It was like aliens and cryptids and murders and all that good stuff. But yeah, the recent one that I saw was again this guy. His family was disappeared, and then when they showed up at the house to investigate, they found like his wife and kids buried under the back porch, and the guy was just gone. They have no idea what happened to him or where he went. They do know he murdered the family, but they don't know why. Like, there's no evidence of any kind of financial problems or arguments or anything with the family. He just murdered them and walked away. Um, the only shot they have of him after leaving the house, there's like some place in the middle of nowhere where he's like visible on a camera, and he's just gone. Yeah, it's funny is the host for it. He's actually a comedian. Like he's like Naked Gun and other movies like that. He's a popular comedic actor. So like doing scary stuff really wasn't his thing. But yeah, he'd be walking there in the mist and the trench coat, coming out of talking really serious about the story that they're going to tell. But yeah, they just don't have anybody doing that. They just show the story now. Like they don't have the host introducing the story or coming out of the shadows like he would. But again, back then that's popular. X Files was really really popular and all of that. But yeah, the things we've lost, right? But yeah, that's what I didn't. When I was younger, I didn't really pick up on the fact that he was a comedian actor. Like, yeah, I hadn't seen. I don't think I'd seen his movies at that point, and I just didn't realize that he was a comedian. It just seems so serious. Um, so just scoot that a little bit for the overhead camera. But I think part of the nice things about TV being on TV was that anticipation and the fact that you had to set aside specific time to go watch your show, otherwise you missed it. And you didn't watch it then, and you didn't never get to watch it unless there's like they were showing it. Like some shows they would show a couple times during the week. So like if you missed X Files on Tuesday or whatever, they'd show it again at a later hour on Friday, like Friday at 10 or something like that. You might be able to catch it then. And that was before they had DVDs, or not DVDs, VCRs that we could program. But so it was like extra special to make sure you caught your show, otherwise you missed it. It's gone, pretty much forever. Unless it came back a few years later on tape or something like that. So it kind of meant something to keep up with the shows. Yes, you had to be there. And something big happened, like when Picard got turned into a Borg. Everyone was talking about that. And if you weren't there when it happened, then you missed it completely. And you kind of lose that excitement these days. It's actually the same for comics too. So like nowadays, like most of the major comic book publishers, they publish trade paperbacks of their stuff, or you can find it online. Um, so if you missed it when it came out, you can always read it later. Back then, like if you didn't, read that comic and it sold out, there's no way you could get it. It was just gone. And, but, there's something to be said for that limited time period because people, would be more invested in that story because it was once it was there, it was gone. It's like like my students, they all loved Arcane. Um, but if I were to go in class, say on Friday, and start asking them about it, I'm sure they wouldn't remember half of the stuff that happened in it. And they might have like a favorite character they like to talk about, but they won't remember um, this exact story. Yeah, there's no hurry now. It's like even like the only reason you want to watch a show really fast is if it's new and people are going to be talking about it. So like say like Alien Earth, if you want to talk to your friends about it, you need to watch it when it comes out. Otherwise, you miss the conversation. It wasn't that stressful back then. People had their life scheduled around going to work, and then you come home and 8 p.m. it was time for this show or whatever. You'd watch it and then you go to bed. It wasn't that big of a deal. Um, Sounds stressful to a certain degree, but it wasn't really thought of that way. It's just it's like your newspaper, right? So these days you check your news on your phone or on the computer, and you just know kind of what's going on all the time. Where then, you could watch the evening news, but you'd also get the newspaper in the morning and see what's going on. I think that made things feel a lot less stressful. People into I think the big cultural change I think that made things very stressful for people was when cable news became a thing. CNN and 24-hour news became important. I think some people track when that started as being kind of one of the big changes in how people perceive things, and a lot of the negativity, like that killing that happened at the university I used to teach at last week. Last week or the week before last now. Everyone's trying to blame like a political philosophy on it. Like it's this side's fault or this side's fault or this whatever other person's fault or this kind of person's fault. Whereas, it's just that person's fault. And maybe they were influenced by things that they believed in. But this idea that suddenly it's one political party's fault or another or this group of people, it's probably not true. But it makes people feel like they're doing something about it when there's nothing they can do about it or anything that they really should. It's like it's terrible for his family, I'm sure, but it's being investigated and they'll sort out a lot of that hopefully. Hopefully we can avoid that kind of thing happening too often. But I saw immediately people I know personally trying to blame this or that thing, and it's like, I kind of look at it from the outside. I'm like, this is clearly someone who is not mentally stable. And any kind of hyperfixation on any kind of politics, doesn't matter what it is, can lead to that. And it doesn't matter what that philosophy is. It's kind of the thing with the Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad movie, where he'll do anything to bring about peace and kill as many people as it takes, as long as it helps bring peace to the world, right? Yeah, it makes people feel like they're participating and their opinions they have validity in the world rather than dealing with the real things that they have around them that they should probably be more worried about than what one person says or does over there or over here. But and then if you were to say that, though, in front of some of these people, they'd say, oh, you're just trying to paper over the problems and excuse people. And I'm like, a Thanos? It's like, there are real problems in the world, but there's not, 99.999% of them I don't have any say in. It's like the AI nonsense that's going on. I can't stop NVIDIA from wasting time making GPUs for them. I can't stop a restarting these different things, I can speak up about how it affects my students in the department. Um, and I pay attention to those other things just because it helps me be more informed, because it does impact, what's going on at my university. Um, but I don't pretend that, like, me saying something online is going to change Sam Altman's mind about developing things, or Microsoft. Um, or, like I saw Chrome is now turning their entire browser into an AI browser, just by default. So, I can't stop them from doing that. I think it's a terrible waste of time, but I can switch to a different browser, like, say, Brave browser, that does, has basically works the same as Chrome. So I can. One thing I like about Chrome is being able to put multiple IDs on it. And so Brave browser does have AI stuff built into it, but you can turn it all off. And so I've switched to that for most everything. I did run into some website functionality, like I think with the school, for a couple things that I have to use Chrome for. But and then I can inform people about that. But it wouldn't do me any good to, like, go protest at Google headquarters or something. It's like, I noticed there's a popular artist. He's done a lot of, like, really popular books over the years, and he's, I think, involved with an AI company called Bizcom. Basically, it puts renders of materials and things over your drawing. So it kind of takes your drawing and turns it into a more rendered version of it. And I noticed in his recent posts that he doesn't allow comments on his posts anymore. He's tired of the negativity or something. I have a feeling he's financially involved with that company too. But I don't get it. I try to listen to what people think they're getting out of AI, and as soon as they start explaining it, it's like, well, that's kind of all the things that I enjoy about making art. Yeah, it's the thing with the student thing too. So even, like, I like to say to my colleagues who support it, I like to say, well, even if it's required in future jobs, so say it keeps developing and it doesn't go away, I have my doubts about its long-term, its longevity in the long term, because of how much it costs and what it's required for it to be actually useful. But even if it's required, it's so easy to use. We don't help them at all by having them use it in school. Like, it doesn't do anything for them. Let's see. Like, it doesn't help them be better designers, better thinkers. So I saw an interesting article that kind of put a good terminology on it, and said they're mistaking the outcome for the product. And so if the outcome of, like, an art student's education is a portfolio of nice looking works, that's like the goal that the students have, then if you use AI to do that, then you'll get a bunch of nice looking work. But really the product, not the outcome, is what's important. And the product of education is your ability to solve visual problems and your craftsmanship and all those other things. It's not just the portfolio, it's the things that allow you to make your own portfolio. Yeah, it's like, it doesn't teach you how to do anything. And I know professors that they're really excited about it. And I actually think if I were to do a survey of the professors in my department, in my art department, that I'm in the minority. I think maybe a third of us don't like it. Maybe, that are against it. And I'm the most vocal one. And I'd rather not talk about it at all. Like, I don't see the point in it. But I've been telling students that they should refuse assignments that require it. That they should tell the professors no, like, because most of the students don't want it at all. Like, they don't want any part of it. And they're like, well, it's the future, and I'm like, is it? Is it really? Like, what does that even mean? And it's like I even look at some artists who never really gone digital. So you look at someone like Donato Giancola, who's a really incredible illustrator, and the only part of his work that's digital is when he's taking photographs. Straight up oil drawing, you know. He prints out his drawing. I guess that's digital, right? So he does take his drawing, scan it, print it out full size, transfer it over. But that's all the digital he does. And so to say, well, he would have been better off if he'd switched to Photoshop. It's like, I don't know if that's true. He would have produced maybe more work, but he also wouldn't be who he is. Yeah, well, it's like my point too with the creativity aspect is part of that coming up with the idea is letting it sit in your brain, exploring it on paper. It's not just having an image; it's having it. It's the things that lead you to the idea. It's not just the final illustration that you're working with. And there's a lot of people that just don't seem to understand that. That's in creativity. That's called incubation. The idea is it has to sit in you, and then the process of making it also gives you ideas. And it's not just having like an end product. And I found, generally speaking, that the artists that tend to support it, they tend to be a lot more on what we call the production end. And so like their main job is not coming up with ideas. It's executing on other people's ideas. And I have a feeling that their creativity is severely stunted. Even if they're not aware of it or think of it that way. Yeah, so the mistakes you run into are the facts of your material. So there's like I've shifted a lot more to doing traditional media. Though speaking of digital media, Nomad Sculpt is now on PC and Mac. You can get it directly from the guy's website, though I guess it'll be coming to Steam as well. It's $35 US, and I put it on my PC. I haven't had a chance to use it much beyond opening it up. Yeah, for me, like artists. Oops, sorry, Bosch. I didn't drop it on you, though. I dropped it next to you. The dog does not like it when I drop things, especially near him, especially not on Bosch. Is something left in my coffee pot? A little bit. But it's been interesting to see like how many artists that I thought would never, that I've respected over the years, how many of them don't actually enjoy making their own work. How many of them are willing, eager to hand that creativity over to an algorithm. It's like I have a friend of mine that I know, and he's clearly using AI to make oil paintings. So he's generating images in AI and then putting them up as oil paintings. It's obvious to me. He's someone who's perfectly capable of designing his own pictures and doing things that way, but he's using AI. I haven't talked to him about it yet, but he's not someone I know that well. But it's pretty obvious that's what he's doing. And it's just kind of like, why? And The thing is, the process is the fun part. It's like, doing this right here, like where I'm having to erase and put things back and figure it out. For me, that's like an exciting part of making the work. Like if I just sit down and execute it perfectly, that's not nearly as interesting to me as where I'm trying to have to solve problems. Sometimes it is the funnier part. But I think that's something people mistake is that they tend to think like if they're not instantly good at something, then they shouldn't be doing it. Yeah, well, the thing is, like, you discover things from what you don't know, too. So, like, I go along, I'm like, well, I've never really drawn Big Explosion before. Hello over there. On Kick. Hope you're doing well. But, learning to understand how things work and why and how to work with those things, I mean, that's all, like, that's like it's like something I really enjoy. Too much sometimes. Like, I love learning new things. I love trying out new things. And, the AI thinks like, oh well, you don't need to bother with that. It's like I see like they've got these like newer translation things, and I wonder how well those Zuck glasses are going to do. I have a feeling they're not going to sell very well. It's kind of like when they try to bring back VR stuff every couple of years, every 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. I just don't think people want to wear glasses on their faces all the time when they're walking around. Um, I'm not looking to do that with anyone right now, but appreciate the interest. If I were to make cool art for my channel, I would probably just make it. Um, I'm trying to sell me their services on streaming, but yeah, I don't think I need to add anybody's Discord. Dude, that just sounds like scams. But yeah, but bringing things to life on my own, like that's like the thing that's enjoyable. So one of the points I've been making with some of these AI faculty, I'm like, well, you know, these chess algorithms, they're faster and more capable than human chess players now, right? Um, do you watch competitive algorithmic chess? Like, why would you who would watch that? Beyond like an interesting like scientific experiment. Um, um, like, who's that even for? So it's like even if like an algorithm can produce an image faster and more complete than a person can, like who's that for? And that's one of the things they found. Like when some of these companies have tried to like jump onto the AI thing, they'll hire some AI concept artists, right? But these AI concept artists they can't edit their work. Like they don't know how to draw. They don't understand color theory or design. Like they're just like, well, I prompted all these things for you, so yeah, they're all good. They've been prompted. And the art director's like, well, we can't really use this because it doesn't work for our project. You don't know what you're doing. And yeah, it's just silly. So, alright, I think I'm going to ban them. I feel like this guy's just a bot anyway, so I'm going to ban them. Off of here. This Amber person. Goodbye. But, yeah, so it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like I saw OpenAI was investing in some group to make a animated film over the next couple of years, I guess. They're giving them $30 million. I'm like, wow, like this really beats out Hollywood and Pixar and Disney and DreamWorks or whoever. And I'm like, yeah, but did you see Flow? It cost $3.5 million to make. Or that Godzilla movie that came out was it last year, I think. That was $15 million. So there. um, it's kind of just like it's like it's like what are you trying to impress me with here? Like you've got a great story, a great vision. Like the tools are all there. If you want to tell a do a movie, well, the recent 28 years later was shot with iPhones, and they did make a special rig and everything for it. They were using a bunch of them. Or you look, I've mentioned this to other people who look at the movie The Creator. It wasn't that good of a movie. Like it wasn't written that well. The characters weren't that interesting. But people were blown away by the special effects, and they spent I think 35 or something million on it, and it was shot on a really basic camera, like a basic DSLR digital camera. They had some rigging stuff for it so they could use it for their visual effects, but they didn't spend that much money on visual effects either, and they got all the compositing looking really, really good. That's like another example. Even though like the movie itself, I don't think is very good. I did buy it because it was like $6 or $5 on Apple. I never finished watching it though. Yeah, probably hasn't seen Akira either or read it, but yeah, the creator, that movie, I mean Napoleon Dynamite, still a pretty popular movie, and it was shot for I think less than $500,000. And so like you don't need that much. And then if you want visual effects, well, Blender is free. Or if you need compositing, you can get DaVinci Resolve for free, which is funny because the paid version actually has a bunch of AI stuff in it, but the free version doesn't. So you don't even need Adobe for most things anymore. Like Affinity, if you're looking for photo stuff, like that's inexpensive and very completely featured out. So it's just like there's like the excuses for like the demand of all it needs to be this will democratize people's abilities to do X, Y, or Z. It's like well they can already do it. It doesn't require them sacrificing their minds and their creativity and their integrity to do so. Like it's already there. And if you want to learn something, if you want to try how something works, well, that information's out there and easily available too. And Blender's pretty comparable, I think, to the major studio programs. Like it's not as good as they are, say, in their one area that they do really well in. I think like Maya's got some unique. It's like that should be let in there. There it goes. But it's good overall. It's probably more than good enough for filmmaking. I mean, Flow can use it with the Eevee engine, without even using cycles. And then they improved it again recently by adding Vulkan in there, which is a new rendering code thing, I guess. Yeah, but it's like I just hear that and I'm just like, I don't get it. Or if like an Illustrator, you can do everything on an iPad these days. Like you don't necessarily need to go on a computer, unless there's something very, 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 very specific you're trying to do. So it's not like you're closed off, and you don't even need the studio system anymore. Like if you look at Ian Hubert's short films that he's done on his channel on YouTube. He's taken a long time to do it, but he's also working professionally on the side along with that. But like they're really good, little movies, and it's just him and his friends and Blender. So yeah, it's all easily available. And so the excuses people make to me, I don't understand them. Well, I do understand, I just don't like what it means about those people that make the excuses. I hate to say I don't understand, but I do, but I just don't. I don't understand in the sense like if I were to consider doing things that way for myself, like it just doesn't make any sense to me, like why I would ever want to do things that way. And, they look at me like I'm a crazy person. So, when I'm talking to them, saying like, this is the problem, this is why. And it comes from multiple places. Like it's not just one thing. It's like a whole range of real issues. And I really, I'd like to see them do cool things with their creativity, but they don't seem to want to do that. But yeah, maybe that's a good place to be. It's like build that reputation on the fact that you are your own mind and your own creativity, and it's coming from you and only from you. And see the button if it's in here. Is Trout House still in here? But I saw an interesting, I really enjoy Rob Liefeld's podcast. Like, I'm not a big fan of his comics, outside of his high energy in his work, and the fact that he's made things that last. I've got some Blackwing pencils around here somewhere. I like them. So some people like these other brands, Mitsubishi Uni pencils, which is what's in these lead actually. This is Mitsubishi Uni. You can get them in wooden pencils. But Blackwing, I think there's 3 grades for their pencils. It's a black, a gray, and a white paint on them. And the Blackwing's really famous for being like really, really soft and nice to work with. A lot of comics people swear by them and sketch with them. Um, but they have like those flat erasers. I'm going to see if I have one on my desk right here. I know I've got some somewhere, downstairs. My pencil drawing kit down there, but I don't know if I have any here. I know I've got like a whole box somewhere, but I don't know if I've got like an individual pencil out there somewhere. I did come across, actually, if you're going to talk about materials here for a minute, I came across something interesting the other day, and we're going to run downstairs and grab that. Be back in just a second. Let's see. But, Alright. Got all collected. Let's see. Need this. Where did I put that little thingy at? It's not time, boss. You gotta wait. I know you're excited. It's almost time. In about 40 minutes, my dog and I go for our WALK. So if we get nearer to that time and I do something, he's like, oh, now is the time. This is a Blackwing. The Palomino Blackwing. They come in a couple different intensity. This is the eraser that's on the end. They're really, really popular. It's a very, very soft lead. This is sharpened with a knife. It's dull right now. It probably got broken. But that's the Blackwing pencil right there. They're really, really famous. If you look them up, like people swear. There's actually a special sharpener, so you can get the super long sharpened tip for them. And there's like a pencil extender you can get for their kind of pencil because they have this squared end. And so it needs like a special extender for it, which I think I bought one. But the thing I found though recently, I was watching a video by Francis Manipool, who's a comic book artist. He's been around for a long time. He lives in Canada. I think he's Filipino. But he was using a brush pen. This is a Kuretake brush pen. So Kuretake, they're well known for their inking tools. Anyway, so it's really nice. I did find that they actually make natural hair ones that are really expensive. Like I saw one that was sable. It was like 120 USD on eBay. they're pretty nice. But what he did, which I thought was interesting, because I often hate kind of the ink in them, is you can actually swap out the typical ink holder for ones that you can refill. So this is a refillable ink cartridge. And so I bought two. I'm going to use one in a fountain pen, but that way I can put whatever ink I want to in here, and I don't have to rely on whatever is typical for that. So I'm putting, I put this Koh-i-Noor ink in there, and basically it's a non-clogging, waterproof drawing ink, and that's what I put in my Rapidograph pen, so that they go into ones, these kinds of pens here that you fill them up. Anyway, these there's like a little plunger on the back here, and basically you can use this right here. If you watch this little part in here, you can see as I screw it, it goes up or down. And so basically what you do is you're supposed to dip the tip into the ink with it down all the way, and then you can screw it up and it'll suck ink into it. And then you just pull it out of the ink, and then you wipe off the tip, and then you put it onto the pen. They also make, which I bought, which I didn't realize they didn't necessarily need. You can also get these special syringes. They're kind of blunt on the end, so don't poke yourself with them. But basically, you stick the tip in the ink. It's got a spring on it, which is nice. Good thing my drawing paper is on the side of this paper, right? But you can stick that in there, and then it sucks the ink in, and then you can inject the ink directly in, which is nice too. I bought these, they're called parallel pens. They're used for calligraphy. You can also write with like a fine tip if you write on the corner, but they have a flat tip, and then if you write kind of on the corner, you will actually just draw just fine with that too. But they're designed to kind of do this. They're for calligraphy. But anyway, you can put, I took some of that ink and cleaned out, it came with a cartridge. This does not fit with this, but I do have those syringes now, and so I took the cartridge it had, cleaned it out, and then injected some ink into it. Because the ink it came with is not waterproof. I don't think you're supposed to use like non-waterproof inks, I guess, to avoid clogging it. But I thought I'd give this a try with this non-clogging waterproof ink. And so, because I like them, but I just didn't like the fact that they weren't waterproof. I like my inks to be waterproof, if possible. So like here I am, 47 years old, and I'm still learning like cool new stuff about art supplies. But I also ordered a fountain pen to work with this kind of setup too. But again, it's just nice that you can put the really good ink into these, and works really, really well. So excited about it. It's always fun finding. One of the fun things about art supplies and being an artist is like all of the kit you can work with, and definitely makes things a little bit more interesting. All right, let's see. We got half an hour-ish left. I wanted to fix up this kid's face. Feels a little off. Put my black wing away. But yeah, but I had no idea you could do that. Like, I think I'd heard vaguely about refilling pens with your own ink or something, but I'd never really looked at it. Just hadn't thought about it. And just do that. Yeah, but anyway, this is they're called the converter. I guess there's a brand called Platinum, but they do work with the Kuretake brush pens. But this is the Platinum converter. So that was for the gold one. There's a silver one too, which is what I put in the brush pen. But the platinum converter is what it's called. Comes in a little box like that. Has instructions on the side, which I didn't notice because they're really small print. That's where you can do the screw unscrew thing with it, or buy some of those syringes to work with it. So part of it's the alignment. Where's that lead go? Come out, lead. It just doesn't quite catch. Where'd the lead go? Come out. But one complaint about these mechanical pencils is sometimes I think I'm looking at the end of a piece. So I think there's some pieces in there. Let's see. Let's double check. There's a bunch of lead in there. It just hasn't quite caught a new piece to back up the old one. There we go. Yeah. The struggle is real, right? But yeah, honestly, especially like color pencils are really, really brittle. This is an F lead, so it's a little bit stronger than some. But yeah, sometimes it can still break if I'm not drawing really soft with it. Yeah, I've got. You have to be careful with the color ones. Like, usually it's better to go with like a 0.7, just because the 0.5s, like, they're already brittle, but the 0.5s are just so brittle that they just any pressure and they just snap right off. Yeah, 0.7 are a lot less fragile. So yeah, it's just one of those learning to be sensitive with your materials, right? Learning to see where they work at, you know. It's like, a lot of times like computer stuff, especially when while I'm learning Blender. Um, I like those Ticonderoga number twos. They're a little thicker pencils. I think I have one. Saw one recently. I haven't bought them since I was in college, but I saw one recently. It was like a leftover somewhere. I got it. Looks a lot better. It was widening out the chin and adjusting the mouth a little bit there. Shorten the chin a little bit. width is I had to go wider on him. His face is looking all doughy. This pencil right here, I think this is the one that does this. It's a self-sharpening lead. So I guess this part right here, no, maybe it's not this one. I think it's I want to have my this one right here. So I guess what this one does is it's constantly rotating the pencil lead in there to keep it sharp, I guess. But that one says a 2H in there, not the EDF. I think it's that one that does that. But yeah, I'm excited about this this comic project here. I've never really tried to tell stories in this way in a long time. And it's like I like to point out that I didn't know about royalties when I was a kid, so I was really into um, planning out stories, and I had started some characters and things when I was younger. This has nothing to do with any of those, um, but I was excited about that as a teenager. Like, wow, you can draw a comic, and you can tell whatever story you want, and there's no limit on the budget, and it has all kind of interesting things that are unique to the medium about how panels work. And then I found out what comic book artists made per page, and I was like, well, that doesn't sound like a good idea to me back then, and so I kind of backed off of it. But I'd never heard of royalties. So royalties, is when you're working on a project and you get paid later on as things sell, not just the initial payment. And I didn't know anything about that. So, when I saw how popular, what later became the Image Comics guys' works were, like Jim Lee and McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and a bunch of others, I didn't realize that they were getting a lot more than their page rate when they were doing the X-Men or Wolverine or whatever. I just thought that's what I thought they were getting. I didn't have any idea about how the business actually works, and so I backed off of it. I think if I had realized that royalties were a thing, I might have invested my time a little differently. But I didn't know. Didn't think to ask, and no one told me. So, And royalties are one of the reasons why it took so long to get a Deadpool movie, because Rob, when he was younger, which is amazing, he had the foresight to do this when he was like 20 years old. Barely, never gone to college. He was totally green, but he was able to negotiate royalties for characters he created for Marvel. So Daredevil and Cable and a few others. And they avoided making the Daredevil movie for all this time just because they didn't want to pay Rob what they owed him, which is hilarious. It's like it's going to make them money, even if they have to pay him some of it. But they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to share, especially Disney, did not want to share profits with Rob Liefeld. Because every time they put him in a comic book or in a game or a movie, they got to pay him. And he's a very popular character. And I like to point out, that Rob is probably one of the last creators for Marvel and DC that's made new, very, very popular characters. There are new characters, villains and things like that, but in terms of ones that people actually want to pay to see, Any tips? Get started. I'm new to this as well. Um, you know, but it depends on what you're trying to do with your comic. You know, if you're trying to make a comic. Um, but I've certainly learned a lot starting to make them. And so one of the things you'll find is that the, as you work on a project, the things that you don't know that get in your way are the things you need to learn about. So it's not just, you know, you shouldn't just say, oh, don't know how to do this, therefore I can't do it. It's more of like, oh, there's this thing, I don't know what's going on. Like, you know, I didn't know how to put 2 pages together. I had to learn how to do that. It's not that big of a deal, like it's pretty basic, but, you know, it wasn't obvious to me how to set it up. Or the way I've got the paper gridded out here was something I had to do on my own. And, you know, because there are default ones out there and the measurements exist, but I just found when I was looking at all the ones at least I could find, like none of them were like very precise, and that really bothers me. So I made my own. Even made my own for the thumbnails, which is what, you know. Here's my thumbnails for this page. So I just took this bigger paper and shrunk it down. That way I can put 2 pages on a single sheet and plan it out that way. And I got my own branding on there too, which I have up here as well. You can see up there. I thought about making this available for sale on my website as a download. So I've got it set up to work at, you know, as a Photoshop file and all of that. But yeah, storytelling is the most important thing. You know, that's the thing I've been spending a lot of time learning is important aspects to storytelling, whether it's in general or specific to comics. Like an important part in telling a story with a comic is to finish the page with some kind of question. Whether it's, you know, you wondering what's going to happen next, or sometimes it's even just a character just literally asking a question. Like, what do you think is going now? Or who is that? Or, you know, some kind of question that requires an answer. And again, that can be, you know, an event that's about to happen. So like on the previous page, it ends with a countdown. It's like a countdown to what? It's a countdown to what's up here. And eventually to what's going on down here. But that's like a unique thing to comics. But you can do it in other medium too. You know, if you have a scene, and it can be a good idea to end a scene or an episode with a big question, so that way people will come back to find out what happens next. But like for me, like story structure, that's been a big important thing, how that affects character development. So one of the things that I've been studying a lot that I'm going to use pretty extensively throughout this story, and probably most stories I'll ever write, is something called the Dan Harmon Story Circle. And I've talked about it in here before. Basically, the idea is it's a progression of types of events in a circle, and it's really good for any kind of long-term episodic storytelling as well as short-term storytelling. There's tons of YouTube videos explaining how it works, but the essential idea is you establish, you know, who your characters are and the situation that they're in, and then you set up some kind of need. So something isn't quite right in their world. You know, they need something, and then they make a choice about moving forward with that need. So they go. So you need go. This is the first 3 steps. And so once they go, they start to search for the thing or whatever it is that they need. You know, that can be psychological, it can be physical, it could be change that needs to happen in their world. You know, whatever it is that they're searching for, and that's usually where they run into problems. Right? They have trials and suffering, and difficulty, challenges. So that's the road of trials is the search phase. And then eventually they find what they need. And then when they take it, they have to pay a price. So you need you need go, search, find, and then when they take it, after the end of that searching journey, and they finally find it, and then they take it, the taking of it costs them something. Usually it's something really significant. So getting what they want, or what they think they need, it's going to cost them maybe more than they anticipated. It could cost them their life, it could cost them their reputation, it could cost the lives of others. It's something that's going to cost them something very significant. And then that paying that price when they take it changes them, and then they return home changed. And so it's you need go, search, find, take. I guess it's return then change, or it's change return. I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but the last two, but they work together. But you kind of set up your story that way, and it works really well. And so Dan Harmon, he's the director, writer behind Rick and Morty, among other things, and it's kind of his approach to storytelling. And it's it's a way of restructuring other story structures in a way that's cyclical. And so what it allows him to do, like with a TV show, is reset its characters while also gradually changing them, and makes a big difference for how he presents his stories. So many details in this bottom row here. So I'm planning on using that because it works for an individual, like say comic book, but it also works for a larger story, or larger sequences. So like a TV show, a single episode can have all of the steps in it, but you can also set up a whole season. So that those 10 episodes they do now, or the 25 they did before, and most of the show is most of the season is in that search phase, and maybe the you and the need and the go happens in the first episode. Everything else is searching, and then the last couple of episodes is when they take and return and change. And then they can also do that for every season. So each season is mostly searching until they get to the final season when they finally take. You can kind of see the pattern in a lot of shows, even if they're not using it directly. It's just kind of something that happens if you're structuring your story around how people change over time. And so you can see it in all kinds of movies and shows and all kinds of media. So I think it's just a helpful structure. So I think studying story structure is really, really important if you're making comics. You don't just have random things happening, but everything is happening for a reason, and it allows you to move the story. There's other issues, like pacing and visual storytelling and clarity and good drawing and all those other good things. But I think having a good structure like that is really helpful. There's other ones out there, like Save the Cat, or the 3-act structure, or the Hero's Journey. But I like that Dan Harmon story circle quite a bit. And again, there's tons of. You just look it up on YouTube. You'll see a lot of really good explanations for how it works, and then start thinking of it that way. In fact, I made a worksheet for myself. It's around here somewhere. It's part of my little printout kit that allows me to kind of plan out. my other page out for references, so I make sure I don't lose any of the details on my picture. So thumbnail pages. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, so I made thumbnail page based off 2-page spread thing too. So this isn't for this story right here though. But this is a worksheet I made for myself. So this page right here, hopefully you can't read too well, but it has the full arc. So you can see, there we go. Return change. There we go. There's the answer. Take, return, change. I forgot the order of the last two. But I basically have the whole narrative that I want written out here, and then I can go from issue to issue. So here's the first issue, and it covers each of these phases. And it's really the setup. So the things that are happening in these first 3 categories here is really what happens in this first issue. And then I've got 12 kind of loosely written up, so like this doesn't have everything on it yet, but it has that particular phase of the story that it's covering as part of that. I have a little synopsis at the top, and a page set apart for each of these, so I can kind of see the whole story. And I set up here so I can either write notes over here, or what I did here is I drew thumbnails of the different events. And this is a good way of helping me keep track of what's going on. And that way, somebody knows. That way I don't get lost, right? It's easy to get lost when you're in the middle of telling a story, and that creates a big map for me to follow. And again, if I want to set this up as a pitch that I say send to Image or Boom or whoever, or do as a Kickstarter, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just randomly drawing things and making them happen. That can be interesting up to a certain point, but doesn't make for a compelling story that you really want to go back to over and over again. Just kind of have random stuff happening. Though one nice thing about comics, you can actually do that as long as the art is just really amazing. But yeah, most of the events of a story that people tend to fall into that searching category. But there's never an out for that search, then you're just kind of stuck. So my dog's like, hey, it's almost time. Got like 15 minutes left. Watch. This page is almost done. It's exciting to see. So I think that's the hardest part for me because I don't have as much experience with that kind of storytelling, and I think when we had Ian McCaig here last semester at my university where I teach, he's big on the 3-act structure, which is pretty typical in film, but I think for me, like having that 8-step framework of you need to go search, find, take, return, change, it just makes it easier for me to kind of think about. And so you just start plugging events in. So like, what are the needs? What is it they don't have? So like in the case of this story, the main story is really about the son. This is the father and the son gets sworn to secrecy for things that he saw before this thing blew up, and the reason why they had to do it. And it's a promise that he really can't keep. And so he returns home as the sole survivor of this event, and he's keeping this secret, and the keeping of the secret causes him to lose his reputation and his standing among the colonials, the colonists there. Um, it affects his psychology because he's trying to keep his secret that he can't tell anyone. And the rest of the story is set, 20 years later, and he has to confront some of these issues again. And so his big need is, there's like colonial needs where like they need resources and supplies and they're running low and he needs to help out with that. But it's also an opportunity for him to repair his reputation for his own and his family's future because of this promise that's impossible to keep. So he has to go out and seek out this new opportunity that he may not return home from. It may be a thing where it's a one-way trip, highly likely, and it also creates a whole other set of needs, right? So if you can't return home unless it's successful, even if it's successful, you might not be able to get home. And eventually he will find it, and then he tries to take it. It will cost a lot. So, so yeah, having that framework just helps me kind of think about the things that are important in the story and why it's going to matter and how things lead into each other, why they work. And then I also can avoid idiot plots, which we talked about before. I think they definitely have their place, but sometimes I think they're tragically misplaced. So, I don't know if that person's here anymore or not, but that's something I think is really important that I think gets overlooked a lot is story structure and why it matters. It doesn't have to be that serious, it can be lighthearted, it can be funny, it can be silly or whatever, normal everyday stuff. So, there. I'm looking forward to making these pages. It's going to be a lot of fun. Wow. Yeah. Again, for me, I think the biggest thing is storytelling. As important as art is and composition and all that stuff, like we don't have for me, like designing a composition and a pose and equipment and other things, it's a lot easier if I have some kind of purpose for that. And story can really drive that purpose. So, the things that they're wearing and the equipment that they have and the way things look or their haircuts or whatever, by having a narrative for it, it gives a reason for why it is the way it is, which is really important for design. I was actually talking to this guy who's been working in film and visual effects and concept art for decades now, since the 80s when he was young. So he's older than I am. And we were talking about that, how you'll see a lot of like 3D artists or concept artists, and they kind of draw the same thing over and over and over again. Like the same monster, the same story, the same whatever, same thing. They kind of default to certain things. And there's nothing wrong with like having like a thing you like to do, but they often like don't move beyond that. And I think part of that is they don't really have a story. They just have like a comfort food thing that they draw. And they found some popularity doing that. We were commenting on like an artist we both admire who's gotten into the AI thing, and how a lot of the things that he draws, they kind of all look the same, and they have for a very long time. And they kind of have the same things going on with them all the time. That's because he's not really designing them. He's just kind of drawing the same thing over and over and over again. And I see that a lot, which may be why he likes the AI thing, because it makes him feel like he's creating new things when he's in fact not. Oh, speaking of a comics person, I don't know if Brandon is still in there, but someone who's been published by Image there, Brandon Dayton, is a Green Monk series from way back. I don't know how way back now. It's been a while. Assuming I'm remembering the ID there properly. So, yeah, but I think story is number one. So, because that'll tell you what you need to do and what to draw and how it should look and how things relate to each other. And otherwise, you're just making an art portfolio. I look back, the old Image guys. I think that was maybe one of their weaknesses when they kind of left Marvel. They were all, they were very popular artists, but they didn't really know anything about crafting characters and stories, and so they ended up like just kind of making new X-Men teams, and beautiful art and great drawing and all that stuff, but they didn't have really compelling stories a lot of the time. They didn't think in terms of story structure or those kinds of important elements to developing their characters, and they just kind of ended up making the same kind of things that they were making before they created their own company, and and they did really well. I mean, it's like I said. Jim Lee, he sold his catalog to DC. I don't know how much he made off of that, but he's been their editor in chief for a long time, and he's an incredible artist. Or Mark Silvestri, he's still around doing stuff. Looks like he's been relaunching a lot of his older stuff. He did a pretty popular Batman Joker team up book for DC a few years ago. That's pretty incredible. And of course, Todd McFarlane's have his long-running Spawn stuff. But I do think like a lot of their work would have had more staying power if they'd spent more time worrying about the structure of their stories. Kind of keeping people there, because a lot of them like they fell behind really fast. Like I think Will Spertatio, he had his Wetwork stuff, and like he barely produced I think any episodes or issues of that. It just fell off really fast. And then he was just busy. I don't think he wasn't sure where he was going with his story. So he had his fancy like concept, these special forces people fighting werewolves and vampires in these wacky nano suits that turned up gold. And then I think once he got beyond that, it was just like, I don't know what to do next. And, I think that's what kind of held him back from expanding his stuff very far. And again, a lot of them can rely on their art skills just to carry their work for a long time. So, like Jim Lee or whatever. Except he was also trying to run a business at the same time as he was trying to make his own work. So that caused him to fall off of production pretty quick. So there's all these issues that you kind of bump into if you don't have that strong structure going on. At least that's what I see from the outside. So I don't know exactly what's true, but that's kind of how I see it. And then you listen to someone like Rob Liefeld, he's like, just make everything really awesome all the time. And I guess that works too, but all right. Well, I think it's time to get the boy out for his constitutional. It's 4 o'clock, and he knows what time it is. He knows that I know what time it is, and so I think we should probably get him taken care of. But I think this page is basically done. I might revise that kid's face up there again one more time. I need to fix that guy's hand. I might do those later on here tonight. I need to get the next pages set up. Yeah, the W-A-L-K, constitutional. Their kind of old word for that. But yeah, thanks everybody that came in. I appreciate you joining me this afternoon. And we'll talk to you all later.